We love supporting and promoting the creators of musical theater throughout the world, and we would love to have your support as well. Go to musicaltheaterradio.com and click on the Become a Patron button because a supportive community is a strong community. Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Yovanov. Now, I'm part of a theater company at York University here in Toronto, and after shows, we all pitch in to clean up the house. And I always think to myself, how can 40 people be so messy? And then I learned about the Muny, and my complaints about cleaning up went away because I can't even imagine having to clean up after 11,000 people. Yes, this outdoor theater holds more people than the population of the closest town to where I grew up. I knew I needed to learn more about this 100-year-old theater company. And as fate would have it, at the April 2022 NAMT conference here in Toronto, I got talking to our next guest. So let's welcome to the show the Director of Marketing of the St. Louis Municipal Opera Theater, or better known to most as the Muny, Eric Pugh. Eric, hello.
Hey, Jean-Paul. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, when I learned about this theater, I really got to learn more about it because it just saw it's crazy, and I got to get down there at some point. But before we get into all the theater company and everything, I always want to get to know my guest a little bit better. So the 30 second of Eric. Who is Eric in 30 seconds?
Wow, that's a tough one. 30 seconds, I would say I'm a theater enthusiast through and through. I started in theater in high school, carried it through my career. I've been doing marketing for theater for the last 20 years. My off time, I go to theater. That's just what I do, whether it's in New York or local here in St. Louis or Toronto even. Unfortunately, during the NAMP conference, there wasn't any theater running at the time, but yeah, so I am a huge theater fan. I love the city of St. Louis here. So yeah, I'm originally from Ohio. I've spent my career, I did some theater in Cleveland, most recently in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, at the Fulton Theater outside of Philly.
Nice. Now, you're obviously not on stage for this job, but when you were in high school, is that where you wanted to be? Were you one of those actors who became off stage, or were you always, those people that, and I love them, didn't ever want to be an actor?
No, I never really wanted to be an actor. I was in a show in ninth grade, Oliver, and just throughout the whole process, I was like, I want to make this, I don't want to do it. And so in high school, I got involved in the scenic design or the scenic shop, if you will, props master, all of that stuff. Just to see it all come together and then sit back and enjoy it versus working during the show.
I love people like you. It's like the backbone of the theater. The actors get all the glory, but you need the people like yourself behind the scenes doing everything. And I love talking to people like you.
Yeah. And and it's interesting because they don't teach you in school that you can have a career in theater outside of being an actor. And I think that's such a missed opportunity. Luckily, some of us find our way there, but someone who wants to make their career in theater and administration, there's few of us out there. Which is good for me, but sad for the industry. So, I really wish, I had known that, but luckily that was my first job that I landed out of college and have been with it ever since.
That's so true. You make a great point because, you have the theater for performing, you have the theater for the tech side, but the administrative side do you even know if there is a university or college or somewhere anywhere that offers that?
There are some that offer master degrees in it. They will be theater administration or, whatever. But, I really find that being in it, theater is such a beast that you can't really learn that from a textbook. I don't feel, they do have some of that, but I don't think it's really necessary. I got my degree is in mass communications with a minor in marketing, and the world's all kind of converged with advertising, PR, marketing, and now you've got to do it all. now digital and social media and all of that stuff. And there's not really anything, to my knowledge, that really teaches you the fundamentals of being able to do that.
I wish they did teach in school just a little bit of what they do on the administrative side, just so the actors and the tech understand it, because there's so many actors who don't understand the tech side. The tech side don't understand the actor side. But to be a well-rounded person just in theater, to understand why you do what you do for the marketing, etc., it would just be good if actors learned all this.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So how did you discover the Muny in the first place? You said you were at other theater companies, you were doing stuff. How did you learn about this?
I first learned about the Muny probably around 2005, 6, somewhere in that vicinity, when I was working at the Carousel Dinner Theater in Akron, Ohio. It was a 1,000 seats dinner theater. Served, not buffet style.
Wow.
It was, more of a Las Vegas showroom. It had a 600-foot proscenium stage, a huge stage. It was really great, but Sean Cercone, who is now at Broadway Licensing, who is part of NAMT, was the artistic director there. And, we would just discuss theater outside of, this just being our job or whatever. And we used to talk about the Muny, because it is an institution. It's we're getting ready to go into our 104th season. But I really got to know the Muny. I was living in St. Louis from 2010 to 2015, working for Stages St. Louis, which is a local musical theater company here. And I would come to the Muny in the summer to see their shows, and just was awe and wowed by them, and just the institution that it is. We have nearly 11,000 seats here, and it's just, the experience is just incredible. So when I went to the Fulton Theater, who, the artistic director there I had worked with at the Carousel, he was a director and choreographer, Mark Robin. And, it's all about connections, right? And I went to work for him for a while, and then they were looking for someone here for a marketing director. And I had come in contact with Kofi Coleman, who is the president and CEO, who actually took over that role my first day. So was a perfect time to join this institution. And I just love St. Louis, as I said, so it was an opportunity I just couldn't turn down.
Wow. And when did you get into this position?
January 1st of this year.
Wow. So this is relatively new.
Yeah, it's relatively new, and it was a bumpy start. I started when I was in Lancaster on January 1st, and then I moved here, and was the day before I was supposed to have my first day. They had decided they were working from home until February. So I took some meetings via Zoom or whatever, but what can you do as a new person, except get to know people via a computer, which is so odd. Then we had our first day back after February, and then we had like a blizzard ice storm for 3 days. So we were at home again. So I had multiple first days, which was kind of crazy, but also I think I had to get to know the organization really quick. And really, the people here at the Muny, it feels like I've been doing this with them for years, in the best way possible, because it just, you just hit go and it's time to go. And we're all, everybody's coming back from not having a full season for the last since 2019. So I'm going along with them, and it's kind of nice. There had been a couple people that started right before the pandemic, so this is really their full season. So it was just kind of nice. It was a perfect time to start and drink from a fire hose, if you will.
You might as well just jump right in, right? Sometimes it's better not to think and just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us a little bit about the history of the theater company, because as you said, you're in 104th year. That you're
104th season. Likely the idea of the theater dates back to the 1904 World's Fair that was held here in Forest Park. If your listeners are unfamiliar with Forest Park is it was just voted #1 city parks in the country. It's actually larger than Central Park in New York. Inside the park, there's a lot of things left over from the 1904 World's Fair. Like there's a pagoda, there's all kinds of things, a picnic area that, was built meant to be torn down. But, back in the day, people built things a little better. So they actually have survived for over 100 years. So there's still a lot of that stuff throughout Forest Park. The art museum is here, the zoo is here, and the Muny. We also have the Missouri History Museum inside the park. So it's a really fascinating place and all free, which is just incredible. The Muny is not free, but the museum.
Good stop.
Yeah, I realized after I said that. Yeah. But so the idea likely started after the World's Fair, but it was around 1916 when they did their first production, and it was As You Like It. And it was celebrating the 300th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. They put it on, and when it was originally created, it was a space between two what they call mighty oak trees. Up till recently, those trees still stood for the most part. One of them did. And was part of the stage. They created a stage in the middle of these trees and put on a show, and then it became, it grew over the years. And in 1919, they created a stage for it, and became a premier theater company in the summer. And of course, like everything during the 20s, there's some rough patches, with the Great Depression and whatnot, but anybody who is anybody in the arts in Hollywood have performed on this stage. There's a Hall of Fame here under the pergolas. We have Hall of Fames on each of the columns of people that have been here, people from Betty Davis and Cary Grant, Bob Hope, Betty White, Gene Kelly, Angela Lansbury, who will be receiving the special Tony this year. So it's really everybody has been there. We attract Broadway talent. Here we use Broadway designers and creative team directors. And it's, it's an experience. There's nothing quite like the Muny, an 11,000 seat outdoor theater. Of course, we're always afraid of rain, but it works, it works, and we get people rescheduled and whatnot. But before the show, we have pavilions that serve dinner and cocktails, and we have a cafe, and we have on our east and west lawns, we have smaller stages that our education group, Muny Kids and Muny Teens, perform at before the show. And then we also attract local talent that, if they're not in a show, then they can perform on these stages for the pre-show. We also have a area in the back of the theater where we, starting this year, are having a Broadway DJ. He's going to do some remixes to songs and throw out Broadway trivia and really get people pumped. So, the art is first, as always, always, but the experience is just unlike anything else. I remember a time several years ago, Beth Level was in Hello Dolly, and I came just as a visitor, and it started to rain after it had opened, so they paused it. We sat there, we waited a little bit, then the rain stopped, and then we started again, right back where they left off. Then it started to rain again. Then they thought, well, let's speed it ahead to 11 o'clock number. Rob McClure was also in this production. And finally it was called, but we got to see the number because they, sped it up a little bit, and got to come back, of course. But, it's an experience, and just makes you appreciate every sound. We're doing Sweeney Todd this year, and our pit is large enough that we're able to actually do the original 26-piece orchestration, which is incredible and rarely done. A lot of people do Sweeney Todd on a small scale. It's not, like the original production. So it's a really great place that our traditions, some seats have been handed down generation after generation. I think one of our longest is around 80 some years, I think, has been in the same family, which is just, it's incredible. It's a tradition. They come, they picnic before the show, and then go, watch the show with their family. In addition to 1,400 seats, our last 9 rows in the theater are free. So you can come, and so there is a free component to us, I guess. So you can come, stand in line, and that's a tradition here in St. Louis. People have grown up, with their families, and some have moved up all the way to Terrace A, closer to the stage.
Wow.
Some continue that tradition with their children.
That's just, you're right. The word experience, you go see a show, it's a show, but now you've got an experience and a show. And like you said, they moved up to the 11 o'clock number, and it would be so incredible to be in the audience. It'd be terrible because you didn't get everything, but then you still got this crazy experience of,
Right.
How did that work when they just skipped stuff? Did they announce to the audience, we're going to just jump to this, or did they just take out the pages, or how did that work?
Yeah, they basically moved ahead closer to the end of Act 1, hoping they would get another little pause or whatever. But they announced, that they would be skipping ahead a little bit, for sake of time, and all of that stuff. The shows here start at 8:15, which is a little bit different also because we have to wait for the sun to set to be able to do that. And another thing, St. Louis's summers are hot. There are 6 weeks in the summer, we're at 100 degrees or so, but we have amazing fans that run throughout. And this year I'm actually going to have the weatherman come out and measure the temperature difference. But it's a lot cooler. The air moves, you're into the show. There are some people that say, oh, it's too hot. But then most people are like, they're just into it and they don't even think of the heat. It's really, it's just an incredible experience.
And how do you deal with the elements on the stage? Obviously, if it rains, is there drainage? Is the equipment covered with something, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. We just went through what's called the Second Century Capital Campaign. It was $100 million goal. We surpassed it with $101 million.
Wow.
With that, it was rebuilding the stage. There are the name's escaping me, but like the sides of the stage actually have blowers that also blow out cool air. And that was rebuilt. The orchestra was put underground a little bit. You can still see them, but that way their instruments are protected. They are protected, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of different safeguards, and the actors, they get wet. There's not a retractable roof or anything. And sometimes they go on with just a little bit of rain. Sometimes, if it's pouring down and lightning, of course, the show's going to be called till it passes. But we have a great relationship with a local news station here, a meteorologist who, keeps us up to date on the weather and all of that stuff, so we can kind of prepare for it as much as possible, know the likelihood of a rainout or something along those lines. So yeah, it's with the new stage. The stage was actually built by Tate in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Funny enough, and they built the stage in pieces. So the stage now is removed every year, so it doesn't have to survive the winter. Previously, it was not, and then they bring it back in and they put the stage back in for both our main stage and our Broadhurst Pavilion, which is where rehearsals are, which is the sides of the stage. It is undercover, but the actors they rehearse out in the elements because they have to, get used to that 90-degree heat in under costumes and all of that stuff. So, yeah.
That's incredible. Just I now I do have to get down there. I just want to see this and
Yes,
experience
yes,
it.
yeah.
What was it like for that moment, that first time you stood on that stage and looked out at the 11,000 seats and just the sheer size
I
of it?
I cannot even describe it. There was two moments of, because I had been to the Muny, but
Mm.
as part of the audience, and I had never, there's a ramp behind the stage that you kind of walk up. So you start to see it, and as you approach the house, it takes your breath away. And it still does. It's still new to me, and I don't know that that ever changes, for actors or anybody. And then our director of operations was giving me a tour of like more of the behind the scenes thing. And we went up into the catwalk area, and I walked out onto the catwalk and looked at the theater, and it took your breath away. I mean, it's really amazing. And the fact that it attracts that many people, that the arts can bring in that many people night after night is just, it restores your soul in a lot of ways, because there are those people that have those traditions and those people that want to experience the arts, and that's really what we're all here for. So it's incredible. Actors say the same thing. It's the lot. There's a backstage lot, which is kind of like a Hollywood movie set lot. In a lot of ways, it's outside. There's moving um, construction vehicles or lifts or different things are always happening. It's really incredible. Our scenic shop is outside ish. They are undercover, but our paint deck is everything's out in the elements, and it's really amazing. As we're gearing up towards season, it is fascinating. Every day there's a couple more people and then a couple more, because it really takes a village. So it's fascinating to watch it come to life, and the property getting prepared and all of that stuff. So
Well, let's talk about this season. Tell us a little bit about it. What shows are going on?
yeah, so we kick off the season June 13th. Most of our shows are a week long. We do have, and if you think that's really short, you think of 11,000 seat times 7 nights, so that's 77,000 people. And they run a week long. So once we get into season, it is a mad dash basically for about 9 weeks, because there are a couple days in between each shows. And we're kicking it off with Chicago this year. Last year, the season ended with Chicago. However, there was a rainout and then a COVID case. So the season came to a close early, and we thought, what better way to celebrate the return of a full season than with Chicago. The original cast has stuck with us, which is incredible. Jay Harrison Gee is our Velma Kelly. They are just closing Mrs. Doubtfire currently. So that's a little twist on the show, which is fantastic. Otherwise, it's everything that everybody wants. There is some pyrotechnics in this show, which we also are able to do because it is outdoors, which is, a lot of fun. But, Chicago, of course, is still on Broadway after 25 years. So the popularity is, it's a modern classic, if you will, with songs like All That Jazz, Cell Block Tango, and my favorite is Mr. Cellophane. I don't know why. I don't feel I am Mr. Cellophane, but it's just, the heart of it all, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's just one show-stopping song and dance number after another. And actually, it's interesting, a fact, is the first time since 1985 and 86, which was 42nd Street, that a show closed the season and opened the next season. In that case, it was because it was so popular, they wanted to bring it back the following years. So it's fascinating. Then we're doing Camelot from June 22nd through June 28th. This is a revised version of Camelot. It's actually a book by David Lee, who was a scriptwriter for Frasier. So this production is smaller, gives you everything you want, the legendary love story and Lancelot and King Arthur and Guinevere and all of that's still there. there's just things like I call the hell sprite. I don't know if that's the proper word, but, is more of a topic than an actual person on stage portraying that. But, it's 6 performers. It's a 90-minute running time. So it gives you everything you want, like the songs of I Love You, Once in Silence, If Ever I Would Leave You, all of that stuff that people love about it. And Camelot, dates back to JFK, who used to listen to the score every single night. And, that is how they kind of became known as Camelot, the whole romance of it all. And so it's exciting. I think people are going to really fall in love with this reimagined version. Not reimagined, but tighter, and just more impact. Then we're doing Disney and Cameron Mackintosh's Mary Poppins, starting on July 5th through the 13th. Of course, everybody knows the movie. The musical is a little bit different, but it gives you everything that you want from Spoonful of Sugar, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, all of that stuff. We are fortunate to have Gina DeWall, who actually was Diana on Broadway in the Netflix movie, along with so many other things. She's so very, very talented, but she will be our Mary Poppins. Corbin Bleu from the Disney High School Musical fame is our Bert. So, it's really exciting. Gina will be flying over the audience.
I was going to ask about that. That'll be incredible.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it happen and see how they do this, because it's really exciting. There's going to be puppetry in this production, and so it's really exciting. We always try to do one show that's kind of bigger for the family, and that the family can enjoy. This show specifically is one of our longer runs, so we do 9 full nights versus 7, because we can't have matinees either, because it's light out.
Oh, yeah.
We wait for the dark. So we'll be doing that. Everybody's favorite nanny. Then we're doing a Muny premiere of Sweeney Todd, which is super exciting, especially following the unfortunate passing of Stephen Sondheim in the fall. This is one of his most, the score he was most proud of. And from what I've read, the movie he was most proud of that felt like did his show justice, which is really, really exciting. Sweeney Todd is interesting. I think we'll see a new audience with this. People have been asking for it for a long time. Ben Davis is our Sweeney Todd, and Carmen Cusack is our Mrs. Lovett, who is currently nominated for a Tony for her portrayal in Flying Over Sunset. So that's exciting. Of course, there's Joanna, the Ballad of Sweeney Todd, The Worst Pies in London, which I can't even imagine. So that's going to be exciting. And again, like I mentioned earlier, we're doing a 26-piece orchestra. So to hear sometimes one of his masterpieces in that full of a sound is going to be a show in of itself, I think.
Before you get to the next one, I'm curious, when you're putting the season together, do you usually go like Mary Poppins to Sweeney Todd? That's a nice juxtaposition of
it definitely is.
swing.
Mike Isaacson, our artistic director and executive producer, he does have a formula. He doesn't really make a secret about it. He always tries to do 2 Muny premieres, a family show, which is typically Disney. Last year was Sound of Music, but it's typically in that vein. There's always a classic. There's always that show that we really want to put on our stage for the arts, but might not be as big of an appeal. But we have the Mary Poppins to what do I want to say, balance those shows, if you will, and really give the season subscriber a complete experience of the Broadway canon,
For sure.
for new and older stuff. That's it. It is planned, yes. And then we're doing Legally Blonde, which recently, Legally Blonde is, we haven't announced a cast for that show yet. It's one of the hardest shows to cast. The role of Elle is just very specific, very the range has to be there. And so one of the easiest things is the dogs, because we go to Bill Berloni, who is the animal whisperer of our country, and others. He does all the movies, all the Broadway productions. I even read that he has insects that he trains, which I find interesting. Very interesting. But we haven't announced the cast. But the show, there's a lot of anticipation with this show, because as you know, and as a lot of people know, or maybe not, but auditions really have had to happen online because of COVID. And when we were doing auditions, Omicron was, surging. And so William Carlos Angela, who is our choreographer for the show, put together a piece from Legally Blonde we had 109 slots to fill for the season. And he put together this thing for the dance call, and somebody decided to post it on TikTok, and it went viral. And then we had people trying to do it. We had people eating chips and watching it, acting like they were doing something, to people casting the show for us. Now, that was not the actual casting process. You did have to actually submit your video, but hashtag Muny went from a couple 100,000 views to over 30 million. And it just, I think part of it, people have asked why. And I just think, one, William created an amazing dance. I can't wait to see him work on this show. But also it was, Legally Blonde is so positive, no pun intended from the show, but it just is, and that's what we need now. So I think people just had fun trying to recreate it. So it will be July 25th to the 31st. Yep. Then we have the color purple.
I was going to say, as a marketing person, you could spend a million years trying to come up with something, and then it's incredible how it's just something just takes off and so organic. And
yeah. And I was in my 3rd or 4th week here. So
you should have said that was me. I actually thought
right. Exactly. Except I didn't want to face equity if that was. That was just incredible, and actually set up the season full of excitement. The only thing I can do as a marketing director is try to bottle that and
ride the wave
out through the season. One of the things my team did, which was incredible, is they decided to do a video on what is the Muny, and post it to TikTok. So those that were going to our page, our followers went up by the thousands. And, so people now know what the Muny are all over the world. I think there were 7 or 8 countries that people had posted videos. And, some people from around the world be like, I don't know what a Muny is, but I'm going to do this dance. So it was actually so fun, and it's still fun. No pressure on the creative team, of course.
No, I
know. But then we're doing the color purple, which is also a Muny premiere, and Pulitzer Prize winning novel by Alice Walker, Grammy Award winning score, the Tony Award for Best Revival back in 2016. It's just a beautiful, heart-wrenching, but also beautiful story of family and resilience, and especially between the 2 sisters. So it's the creative team is actually a team that's put together a Joseph Jefferson Award-winning production in Chicago a couple years ago, and they're coming down to do this show, which is really exciting. And then we end with Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in August. You can't go wrong with that mega fun hit, and it's just full of life, and really a picture perfect grand finale, if you will. So yeah, that's our season. It's exciting. There's definitely something for everybody. And there's actually stuff I haven't seen, which is great. Having seen hundreds of shows, it's exciting.
That's fantastic. That's a full season, and the fact that you do it in 9 weeks, all that stuff, and just that is just, I can't even imagine what it's like at the theater during that. But week 10, you probably just all crash.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, there is a staff appreciation day off over Labor Day weekend and, stuff like that, so that people can rest up. A lot of people take vacations. From what I understand, I'm looking at vacations myself for that month, for the month of September. So not for the whole month, I wish.
Well earned.
Right.
So over 100 years, there must have been some shows that stood out. Obviously, you wouldn't have seen all of them over the 100 years, but ones you've probably heard of. And what shows maybe stood up to the performances, the show, whatever it was?
Yeah, one of the shows that really stood out to me, and they still talk about here, is Into the Woods with Heather Headley. She was the witch in that production, and it stands out. Another show that I saw, which was the first year Mike Isaacson took over from Paul Blake, who had been here for years, but he did a production of South Pacific that everybody still talks about. And of course the chorus line back in the day, and the original Chicago was done here. And it's interesting because you hear about Maine with Angela Lansbury, people talk about, and I mean, how could you not? It's very interesting, being such a storied theater, from the people that have performed here, which have almost become, and this is me as an outsider before I worked here, but has almost become a rite of passage for every performer to want to step foot on that stage and experience. There's not many people you can experience 11,000 people, standing in front of you. And Rob McClure, who has been here multiple times, one of the things he does here is he literally runs every aisle and touches every single seat before the production starts, every single night. So yeah, he is in great shape. I don't know if he practices beforehand or what happens, but so there's stories like that too that are around, and who was what people wanted backstage, some of the bigger stars to, some of that stuff. So but from what I hear, most people that perform here are happy and they love it. They haven't had many divas or any of that kind of stuff, which is great. But yeah, I think, I'm sure 42nd Street back in the 80s, which I mentioned closed a season and opened a season. I think they ended up doing 42nd Street like 3 years in a row. So I am sure that was a very, something a lot of people remembered because it was so big and people wanted that. A chorus line was similar. It was performed a couple years in a row also. So yeah, I'm trying to think. I know On Your Feet last year, people were talking about, which was really great, and also had fireworks and stuff like that with it. So yeah, I think it's really about the tradition. I'm sure everybody has their own personal stories, but I think it goes to someone's favorite performer is performing. This year with Joseph, we have Jason Gote as Joseph and Jessica Vosk as our narrator. And if you're unfamiliar with Jessica Vosk, she had a career going, and she dropped it all for the theater, and she's played Alphaba, and I mean she's just went on to have this amazing career. So it's those type of things that we also in our productions, our Muny kids and teens are in shows. For Little Mermaid, a lot of them were like guppies and stuff to fill the stage under the water. So it's just so unique that I think almost every production is a favorite for somebody. I'm definitely sure, there's people, creative teams and stuff like that internally people really love to work with. On Your Feet, I mentioned last year, that creative team is the one behind Legally Blonde this year. It was the first time they were here, and it was just such a wonderful experience that they wanted them to come back this year. So
So how can people find out more about the Muny and the show and the season?
Yeah, so that's muny.org. And they can go there. And there's our website is a wealth of knowledge there. We have archives there, which are being updated currently, but you can see, read about the history, read about our second century campaign and what it changed. They redid the offices and all of that kind of stuff. Being in the middle of a park, presents its own interesting things. But yeah, muny.org, it's about this season. We put our cast up as we announce them. So you always know who is coming and all of that stuff. So.
Fantastic. Eric, thank you so much for coming on and telling myself and everyone a little bit more about the Muny. But before we go, I always ask 3 questions of my guests.
Okay.
Now, there's no right or wrong answers, but people might judge you.
Okay.
Not me, but I'm saying the listeners might. I'm just saying.
Sure.
All right. So question number 1. What creator or team within musical theater has had a great influence on you? It could be a composer, lyricist, director, producer, actor, even stage manager. Could be somebody famous or not famous, maybe a teacher. Is there anybody in the musical theater world?
Yeah, I mean, most recently I would say Lin-Manuel. I just am in awe of his talent and how many genres he can cross and all of that stuff. But really the Jonathan Larson is, and Rent is what it defined a generation, which was my generation. And I just, seeing Tick, Tick, Boom, of course, that Lin-Manuel did, 2 of my favorites coming together in that movie. I get chills now. I think those 2 men both change the direction of future for the next few decades for themselves. Amazing. And and I also love Stephen Schwartz. So those are my favorites.
All correct answers. 1 point. You can't get wrong on an opinion question.
Right.
So you're good with that one. Okay, question number 2. Now, this might be more judgy from people. Back in 2000, I understand you worked at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I did.
So if you had the power to induct 3 members into the Musical Theater Hall of Fame, who would you put in? And who do you think should be there? I know there's a theater Hall of Fame on Broadway at the Gershwin Theater, but we're talking about world musical theater. Who would you put in? What 3?
That is very hard.
Yep.
And performer?
Anybody in the musical theater world.
Got it. I mean, definitely Patti LuPone.
Mm-hmm.
She is a force. And it's fascinating because to me, I'm like, it's almost like a show. Is it hype? Is it whatever? And I went to see her in War Paint. Whether that show was good or not, we won't say. But, I went to see her in War Paint, and it was right before she had her hip replaced. And, I'm someone, I love the mezzanine. I sit in the mezzanine because I watch everything from cue to cue calls that I know the stage manager has to make to everything. And so when the focus was on somebody else, she would lean against the table because you could tell she was in that much pain. But when she was on and she'd work through it. So, for the tenacity, for the legendary, like she definitely is someone and incredibly talented. There's someone else that I just find is one of the most under appreciated musical theater people, and that's Jeremy Jordan. I think he is so incredible. Why he is not starring in every single show on Broadway, I do not know. I'm fortunate to have some friends in common with him, but so I've met him several times, but his vocal, his range, his effortlessness, everything about it is what he brings to, Waitress was the only show I've seen twice on Broadway. I've seen shows on Broadway and then on tour and stuff like that, but it's the only one, and it was because he went into it. And what he brought to that role changed the entire show for me in a way, and it's incredible. So I just think he's underrated. And I think he should be working much, much more. Of course, now he's starting a rock band or something, but you know, and let me think, who else? Probably Lynn, Manuel. I mean, I just find him incredibly innovative and, knows how to speak to multiple generations, which is hard. We all have, or every performer, every theater, has a generation that they speak to most. And I just really feel like he speaks across multiple generations with everything he does. Even like Bert in the Mary Poppins movie, I was just like, how could you go into that role, following Dick Van Dyke as that character and make it your own? And he's just incredible. Yeah. He's an incredible human being, and he needs that EGOT. And
those are three great choices. Again, with 100+ years of musical theater to choose from, it's so hard. But
it's so hard. So hard.
But if these were important to you, so and they're not wrong. So another point, 2 points so far. Right. All right. Third question, which is probably going to be a little more unique to your situation in the Muny. Food in the theater or cell phones in the theater, which are worse? And I'm very curious about how do you hear cell phones in that theater with 11,000 people? Is there food? How does that work?
It is a little different here, because we do have concession people like at a ballpark stadium, going through the seats or whatever. But, cell phones, probably the light of the cell phone, probably not as much at the Muny as at a Broadway theater. Yeah. But nothing drives me personally more crazy than the crinkling of paper, because doesn't it always happen at the most inopportune time, the most dramatic moment? Someone decides they need a lozenge or something, and you're like, why at this moment? And, and I just don't understand. We go 2 hours without eating so much of our lives. What is the difference of being in a theater? Anyway, so that's it's a major pet peeve of mine. The cell phone, sure. I personally think, and this will go against everybody in theater, but I'm a marketer. So, I personally think I would love for people to take photos and to tweet and to post on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok their experiences, because you know what, we have to come into the 21st century, and we have to remain relevant. Not that won't, but where is that happy medium? Because Six right now on Broadway, when I saw it in Chicago, but one of the things they did was take out your phones and take pictures of it. And you saw them everywhere. It's exciting. So anyway, I digress, but food is definitely on that list.
I would have also accepted both are terrible, but so I'm going to give you another point. So congratulations. 3 out of 3. I don't know if you'll get any flack from the listeners.
Yeah, some of the choices, I can't wait to see.
Eric, again, thank you so much for coming on and introducing myself and the listeners. And I hope there's another 100 years for this theater.
For sure. Thank you for having me. And please come down. Let me know. You have my contact information. Let me know what show you want to see. There's so many to choose from. So
I know.
Yeah.
All right.
So it is a great town. You could spend weeks here. So.
Well, you have me at theater and the zoo, so I'm kind of
there you go.
Both of those I want to go see.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so we were just speaking with Eric Pugh from the Muny. They're in St. Louis. Tune in next week as we'll be speaking with another guest or guests about their life, love, and passion that is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.